After 15 years of doing the Botox Cosmetic, I have learned so many things by trial and error. Funny things have happened, and I thought that I would share all of that with you guys today because I have lived and learned, and I will give you my tips and sort of my experiences and where I'm at now with using Botox. So if that interests you, stick around and we will get right into that. My name's Jamie. I am a registered nurse, and I actually became a registered nurse in 2006, which has a lot to do with this story of when I started using Botox, because Botox actually got approved for cosmetic use in 2002. And when I became a nurse in 2006, it was very new, but it was kind of the thing, and a lot of us were getting trained on how to do Botox. I started using Botox at that time, and that has a lot to do with the huge learning curve that I underwent when we first started using Botox. But more on that in a second. Nowadays, in the year 2024, millions of people use Botox and have wonderful results, and it's used for a variety of different things. But when it first came out, the name of Botox is botulinum toxin. Botox comes from the same bacteria that causes botulism, a life-threatening food poisoning that paralyzes the muscles that help us to breathe. A derivative of botulism, it was kind of a little bit scary, but us ER nurses were on board to give this a try, and so that's what we did. So forgive me if I don't know all of the details about the history of Botox, but I'm going to sum it up in a really quick summary here. And that is, in the 70s, a doctor, Alan B. Scott, wanted to use the product of Botox to help people with like spastic muscle disorders, like strabismus, which is crossing of the eyes, or blepharospasm, which is like an uncontrollable closure of the eye. And so that is how the product was first used. Interestingly then, in the 80s, an ophthalmologist named Dr. Jean Carruthers used the Botox product to help people who had spastic eyelids or a painful condition where they couldn't open their eye. And so she would inject the product into the muscles around the eye, and the patients came to her and said, you know, when you do this treatment for me, it really makes me look refreshed and like less angry. And lucky for Botox, Dr. Jean Carruthers was married to a dermatologist, and she brought this to his attention as, hey, this really helps my patients with those frown marks. And hence, long story short, Botox Cosmetic was born. Getting approval by the FDA takes a long time. So it was approved for use for the glabellar lines, or also known as the 11s, in 2002. Now we know Botox is used for many different things, including excessive sweating, migraines. We already know that Botox can be used for spasticity of the eyes, the strabismus, the crossing of the eyes, but it can also be used for an overactive bladder and muscle spasms. But let's get back to the cosmetic use of Botox Cosmetic. Injecting Botox into our muscles, it's a very precise injection, so it doesn't spread, and it causes the neurotransmitters to be blocked so that our muscles don't contract and they relax. So this is really tricky when you do go for Botox, or you have a Botox practitioner. They need to have an extensive knowledge of the muscles of the face and which ones contract and which ones lift. And for a quick example, the muscles right here on your forehead, the frontalis muscles, they help raise your eyebrows. So if you paralyze those too much, in an attempt to smooth the lines, you're also going to
make your eyebrows droop.
But There has been a lot of education and learning since I first started using Botox, and these adverse reactions are pretty rare, especially if you go to someone who is well trained and certified to do Botox. The use of Botox has expanded tremendously since I started doing Botox back in 2006, because when I started using the Botox product, the only places that we even knew to use Botox was for the 11s on your forehead and the crow's feet. But now you can do all kinds of different placements of Botox to thin the face or decrease the strong jawline. There are places so that you don't have the Marie Antoinette lines, or there's even places where you can inject Botox here and here so that you don't have a frowny face and your face is just always in a smiling position. Okay, so let's get to my experience, starting back in 2006. So me and one of my fellow nurses decided that we wanted to try Botox, and one of our friends was trained in doing Botox, so we of course went to her. But remember, this is like right in the beginning of when Botox was really starting to pick up some speed here, and the knowledge, the learning curve was pretty big, I would have to say. So we didn't know really how many units we should be using or what kind of look we wanted to be going for, so we experimented. And one thing I can tell you guys is if you're watching this video because you're scared of getting Botox, well, the good news is Botox is temporary. So I have had many a fiasco with Botox when I first started using it, and I would just tell myself, you know what? I want to try, putting it in a certain spot, or try extra units, or try less units, and it would wear off in 3 months. And I'm just not really that type of person that goes too crazy over it. Like for example, one time we were experimenting with the brow lift and my eye was completely paralyzed. Just when I would smile, but this one would go down like this. And I just had to laugh about it. And it was kind of like, if people around me noticed, I just said, yeah, we're experimenting with Botox and figuring it out as we go. Some little pieces of advice though that I would give you before you go to do Botox, if that's what you want to do, is don't take any ibuprofen for at least a week before you go. Don't drink alcohol a few days before you go, because you don't want any of the injection sites to bleed at all. It'll be a tiny amount of bleeding usually if it is, but then you'll have these little like pinpoint bruises, and it's like really, really obvious that you just had Botox. Again, not that I care, but if you care, you won't want to have that. The other thing is, know your face. I have a huge vein right here and one that goes up this way. And funny thing about that, I had these situations where I had the paralyzed eye, or the brow lift was too high that I looked, kind of scary in nature, or ultra surprised at all times. And so I decided, you know what, I'm gonna spend the extra money and go to a double board certified plastic surgeon to have my Botox done. Well, when I went to that person, the Botox was injected right here, and that is where that vein lies. And so then I got this huge, like, baseball size bruise on my forehead, which I wish I had expressed to that provider. I have this big vein here. I do now. Obviously, I learned that I needed to do that from that point on. The other thing that you can do is, if you're prone to bleeding, or you're just kind of, a bleeder, you can ice the areas first so that your blood vessels are a little bit more constricted when you go to have your Botox done. So those are a little bit of words to the wise that I have learned over time from doing this. Back then in my 30s, experimenting with Botox, I definitely remember going with the maximum amount of units all the time, thinking that that was just what you needed to do in order to get a good result from Botox. But really, that gave me such a frozen appearance, and our glabellar lines, they pull our face together. And so if you really paralyze this significantly with a lot of units of Botox, you tend to have this big spread here, and it can give you kind of that like feline look, the cat sort of look. And I had that, and I had a completely smooth forehead, and I remember us laughing around my house, like I would try to frown and nothing would move. And I just kind of thought that that's what the look was when you were using Botox. So I decided to take a little bit of a break, and I had been using Botox at this point for like 5 years or so, maybe even 6 years. And so I took a break in my 40s. And actually, since I had been using Botox for so long, my wrinkles really weren't that significant at this point. And I was young enough in my early 40s. So I took a break for probably about 5 years. And then at around the age of 45, my 11s started to get really contracted to where they were just always present. And that is actually like a force on your muscle, bringing your eyes together like that. And it would cause me to have tension headaches. And I even kind of felt a little bit cranky because I was like, there's that facial expression feedback. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but like if you're in a really cranky mood and you just smile, just sit in your car and smile, that biofeedback is supposed to actually make you feel better. Well, same goes for if you're constantly scowling. I was just kind of cranky because of it. And so I went to my hairdresser and I was telling her about my frustrations with, I don't like that frozen Botox look. My camera's giving me a hard time again, so sorry. But okay, where was I? So I went to my hairdresser, told her of my concerns, and she recommended me to go to someone that was in her salon who also did Botox, who was a registered nurse and worked for a plastic surgeon for years. So that is who I started going to, and I expressed my concerns with her over the overly frozen look, or my droopy eyelids that I had experienced, or the bruises that I had encountered. And she was great, and she really went over what I wanted, and that was full movement. In fact, I had my Botox done maybe 6 weeks ago, and you can see I can move everything, but everything is just relaxed. I'll put some pictures right here of when I was on the break, and you can see how I have those frown lines that are just kind of permanent. I have a lot of the forehead lines, and my crow's feet are getting pretty deep at this point. So it was definitely time. It was like all the skincare in the world won't prevent those deep, deep wrinkles. And I just wanted to get rid of them and just look a little bit more refreshed. I always think too, I want to look refreshed and healthy and really good for my age, because no matter what you do, I'm never going to look 20. And I know that, and I'm not trying to get to that point. So I just want to look, healthy and rested. And Botox really does help accomplish that. So what do I do? Well, I do the minimum, pretty much. I definitely do the minimum. Now, I do know that if you're going to do Botox for the first time and you have deep 11s or really, deep crow's feet or forehead wrinkles, when you go for the first time, you might need to kind of do more units, because you have to relax those muscles. Once they're relaxed and you go back, every 4 to 6 months, then you don't have to fight them so hard, if you will. So yes, now I'm to the point where I go every 4 to 5 months and I just get the minimum. That way I'm always able to move all of my face, but the lines are just very relaxed. So I do about 6 to 8 units here. I have her do 2 units here, here, and here for the forehead lines. And then I do 2 and 2 here for a little bit of a brow lift. And then I do go the full like 15 to 20 for my crow's feet. I just really like to wear like shiny, sparkly makeup and highlighter, and I don't want it settling into those lines. So I do the maximum around there, which is like 5, 5, and 5. I have in the past done a little bit of Botox under the eye, but I just don't do that right now because I want to have some movement. And if you do a lot of Botox around your eyes, you get those big, deep bunny lines here. So like, I mean, I probably have some right now, but they're not so deep and noticeable all the time. So you'll just have to experiment. Honestly, doing Botox is like a work of art in a way. And you're gonna have to find what works for you, what units you wanna you wanna use. At one point, I had my nurse do 2 units of Botox here and here. It's supposed to help with that like frowny, permanent frown so that when you're resting, you just have like a smile. But in my opinion, it made me kind of look like the Joker. Like nothing I did would make me have a straight face. It was always angled up and I didn't like it. And my husband was like, you look weird with your face always smiling in that weird way. So again, 3 months and then it definitely goes away. And so I don't know, you guys have to let me know about your Botox journey in the comments below. And if you've already used Botox, if you've had a bad outcome, what did you do about it or what happened? Or if you're just investigating using Botox at this point. And I'm happy to share my experience with you and my knowledge about Botox and all of the follies that I've kind of had because of it. And I in no way encourage anyone to do anything they don't want to do, but it's always good to hear other people's perspectives and stories. So I'd love to hear yours as well. Let me know if you want me to make videos on anything else, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.